Thanks for that introduction. I'm actually not 24. I think there's this story going around in the papers and such. Um, I'm actually 34, but I wish I was 24. Anyways, so hi, I'm Viral Shah, and I worked on the Nandan Nilekani campaign. I'm just going to talk a little bit about about my own background, which I think is very similar to the background of many of the folks here, right? I'm assuming this is largely an IT background, audience here, right? Anyone not from the IT world, please raise your hand. Yeah. Okay, so just two people. So, actually my engagement with government and politics started about 5 years ago. And this was when I came back from the United States and started working with Nandan on the Aadhaar project. And Sunita here actually helped make sure that we got our meals and had a place to stay and all kinds of good stuff. And those were the early days. Actually, it was a startup within government. And one of the things we kind of, at least for me, that I learned executing the Aadhaar project, I mean, it was a story in itself, and there's a lot to be said there, but the key thing that we learned there was that, all the stuff you hear about in your civics textbooks, right? There's the executive, there's the legislature, there's the judiciary, and what do all these things mean, right? So for example, when we were executing the Aadhaar project, it was being done by the executive arm of the government. That's not the decision-making arm of the government. Finally, if you want to make true political change, if you want to make sure that you affect policy decisions at all the right levels, you have to work at the legislative level. It's the well of the parliament, as Shashi put it, right? I mean, it's the people sitting there who make the laws, and that's kind of what determines the fate of a democracy. So that using that background, when given the chance to work on Nandan's campaign, I jumped in, and as part of creating or managing the campaign, we set up this company called FourthLion Technologies. And anyone want to guess? I think this was already in the email that was sent out. So the 4 lions represent the 4 pillars of government, or the 3 that you see on the Ashoka pillar. The 4th one, we like to think of it as the citizen, but the 3 are the 3 pillars of government. So that's kind of the basis with which we started this organization. And with the goal of sort of running the campaign and seeing what more this space entails in terms of, what does the data look like, what does technology look like, how do you make sense of what people are thinking, how do you poll, how do you do all sorts of fun things. And I'm going to start sort of, going into that in more detail. So, as Shashi already talked about, the political landscape is changing. Awakened citizens are demanding more of their leaders, direct, personalized, and timely interaction with their representatives, and need for cutting-edge solutions, right? I mean, people are no longer just interested in hearing platitudes. I mean, they even, like in the earlier talk, right? They finally asked, our Prime Minister that please, do not talk about attacking the opponents, but please give us solutions. Please give us your vision for the future. And with social media, with digital media, you're seeing more and more of these engagements happen at a closer level. So business as usual clearly is no longer going to work in politics. If you look at urban elections in India, it has already changed. Social media already makes a huge impact. The amount of data that you see on social media, I mean, in terms of, I guess for EMC, these are not large numbers, but if you just count the numbers of messages, or if you see the number of tweets, or you see the number of emails that comes to a typical contestant's mailbox, it's humanly impossible for someone to sift through any of this stuff and make sense of what's going on. Even the appearance of being close to the voter by being responsive on all sorts of digital media is pretty close to impossible. And it's something I think we did well in our campaign. I think Narendra Modi did a great job in the campaign, sort of defined the boundaries out there. But the rest of India, I think, has a long way to go. And, but I'll describe our journey for now. So the presentation is kind of a combination of what, FourthLion does and, what we did as part of the one campaign that we have experience from. And, it's all about combining messaging, right? I mean, finally, what is politics all about? It's, you have people, you have society, society is making decisions. And the job of the politician is to send a message, right? I mean, is to define their platform, differentiate themselves, and put out a message. So the way you form your message has to be done scientifically in today's world. I mean, whether it's a national level campaign or whether it's a constituency level campaign or it's a Gram Panchayat campaign. The guy running for election always has to have a message. What is he offering that the guy before did not have to offer? Political experience, of course, that's what the politician brings, and these are combined with ground organization and local dynamics, right? I mean, finally, there's already a local dynamics on the ground. There are local leaders. There are people with, their sort of interests, in whatever form or shape. And all of this kind of comes together at the grassroots level, and you get 100 crore people, casting, well, I guess more like 70 crore people casting their votes and choosing, our leaders. So these are, so the three of us started this firm. It's Shankar Maruwada, my colleague, and Naman Pugalia. So the three of us started FourthLion Technologies to do this. And this is kind of how, these are all the things we built, and a lot of them were actually failures. I mean, the list of all the things we did during the campaign is crazy. I mean, if you look at candidate evaluation, constituency profiling, voter rolls, research on competition, communications, voter outreach, opinion polling, and booth operations, right? These are just few of the things we did as we were running a grassroots level campaign. This list would be 3x bigger if I put in all the failed projects on it as well. So, when you are jumping into the politics of an area, I mean, what do you need to know? Do you need to know every local leader in that place? You need to know, if you're running as an MP, you want to know who the MLAs are, who the corporators are, and who the third level, fourth level local leaders are. How do you do this in a short amount of time? And technology helps us quite a bit, organize data, scroll whatever's available online, put it together. The profile of the constituency, of course, I mean, again, if you're a seasoned politician, you know what the constituency looks like. If you've been living there, you have a pretty good idea of what it looks like. But when you're contesting for elections, everything changes. As I drive around Bangalore, I just mentally count numbers of votes in every building now. Like, okay, this is, like this area looks like it's 1,000 votes, or that looks like 5,000 votes, right? I mean, you just start seeing things in a different way. Voter rolls are the backbone of any election, any campaign, and Shashi again talked about the process of digitizing these rolls, and it's absolutely atrocious what the Election Commission puts out there in the name of data and transparency. I think this is something that all political parties should take up across party lines and bring about as election reform along with the Election Commission. I mean, transparent and correct voter rolls are the basic foundation of elections and of our democracy, right? I mean, if the list is not right, if there are errors of inclusion, if there are errors of exclusion, people who should not be on the list are on the list, people from out of town coming and voting, people who should be there but were not put on the list because of some bureaucratic snuffle, whatever it is, right? I mean, how many people out here actually have a voter ID card? Almost everyone. And almost everyone, I assume, was able to vote, or so many fewer hands go up, right? So, I mean, I wouldn't want to go into the kinds of reasons that you couldn't go. I mean, it could be personal reasons, but I know of a lot of people from last day booth duty where they said, oh, my name was deleted. I was on this list, I voted last time, I couldn't vote this time. Or I'm at the wrong booth, I don't know which booth I need to go to. I mean, if I had to guess, easily 10% of the people who show up at every booth could not vote. And this was the landslide election, a lot of people wanted to vote, right? I mean, they either wanted to vote for the local candidate, or a lot of people thought they could go in and vote for Narendra Modi directly. I mean, but, bad voter rolls, sorry. So unless they're transparent and unless everyone can look at them and, sort of analyze them, we are never going to get there. And I think the Karnataka High Court intervened after a bunch of activists in Bangalore analyzed the voter rolls here for accuracy. It was a landmark victory where a lot of the deleted voters over the last few years were reinstated on the voter rolls after a court order. So every state has its own little politics and own data issues with voter rolls, and I think this is something we should all work on. And then there are many other parts of the campaign. I mean, You have research on competition. If you're fighting an election, who is the opponent? What are they going to say? What are they going to say about what you say? And what are they going to say about what you say when you target them back? And so on and so forth. Communications is the way you put out that message once you figured it out. Voter outreach, go to every door, make sure they know where they have to go and vote, who they're going to vote for, try to influence them. And finally, on the last day, make sure that they know where the polling station is. And booth operations, which is essentially making sure that when people actually come to the right booth, they know what serial number they are on. So it's an antiquated system. I mean, how many of you remember your serial number from when you voted, or did you even have your serial number when you went to vote? You're probably looking at a guy who was feverishly turning some pages to find you on the rolls, probably, right? It's a familiar sight. Does it have to be that way? I mean, we have unique IDs for everyone in the country, but our voting processes needs a lot of work. So this is how, these are all the challenges in the campaign, and everyone in society, right? I mean, it's one thing where everyone is a customer. Unlike, if I'm an FMCG company, I'm not worried about everyone. If I'm trying to sell an internet connection, if I'm trying to sell X, Y, Z, right? Elections are the only thing where in a short amount of time, like a period of 3 to 6 months, you have to pretty much target everyone, make sure they know where to go, show up on the right day, do the right thing, and then sort of move on and repeat this process over and over again. So we built lots of internal tools, and the technologies, we pretty much used an open source stack for everything, largely coded in Python and Ruby on Rails, MySQL databases. Working on one constituency is not as challenging as, say, working on an all India campaign. So but what we did not have in sort of what I would call as breadth of geography, we had to go for in depth. So we had to do quite a lot more for one constituency. I mean, if we had to do this thing at a statewide scale or a countrywide scale, we'd probably not be able to do 50 or maybe even 90% of these things. But technology, as you all know, is scalable. So whatever technology was developed can be scaled up. And candidate evaluation, so here's what a typical candidate page would look like. Constituency profiling, familiar Google Maps, you can browse around. It's overlaid with the data from the parliamentary constituency, assembly constituency, and the ward, for example. It's a tool that we call Hawkeye. So you can just kind of sit and browse and look at the constituency, and it'll tell you interesting things like income. It'll tell you interesting things like what's the readership, what language, what kind of people live there, and so on and so forth, whatever's available in public databases. We were able to take all this data and yeah, so this is exactly what I just talked about. So Hawkeye, which kind of takes all the data available and just makes it available visually. And I think Anand after me is going to probably talk more about interesting visualizations. So we were able to take all of this, we continuously kept building maps like these where we kind of kept plotting, colors and lots of text in little fonts to just get an understanding of what's going on. And okay, so here's voter rolls. The ability to look up someone on the voter rolls was something we implemented on the last day. So if you went to a polling station which was manned by Together with Nandan volunteer, then you could be searched on just through a regular mobile application and punch in the voter ID, and it would tell you if you're at the right booth, and if you had, it would tell you what the serial number is, so the person could go in and actually cast the vote. So this was quite popular, and people loved this. Especially, it was welcomed by a lot of the grassroots workers. Contrary to our belief that we always thought that it would be impossible to convince such a large number of people working on the last day to use technology. But I think technology is smartphones and all. It's everywhere, and people are ready to embrace it. Online platforms, of course, I think all of you guys know about this. So, for our campaign, we did Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and there was the nandanilekani.in official website. We did tons of things on phone. We did stuff in on hoardings and banners, and of course, just like in any other election, feet on street. We sent out a letter to everyone, which was another use of the voter list. So a letter per household, actually, not for everyone, and this was quite a feat to pull off but we were sort of able to execute this entire project within the space of a week, from deciding to do it to actually getting the letters like put in the mail. And the interesting thing, typically when you receive something like this, you'd think it's spam, right? I mean, like, why the hell are you sending me all these dead trees? What we did was we actually made it interesting for the person receiving it, because all the booths in Bangalore South had actually changed. A lot of the booths had been deleted, a lot of new ones had been added. So we put personalized information there. Again, all these things that I'm talking about are being done across the country by someone in some form or shape. I think the key was integrating it. Again, this was the slip that we sent out to everyone, which was easy to generate once you have the voter file. We tracked all our communications, media intelligence stuff, opinion poll and tracking. We came up with some technology to sort of put your finger on the pulse of the people immediately, right? Polling often gives you data that's not useful. I mean, by the time you get it, it's often quite late. So we came up with tools and techniques to make it almost close to real time being the same day in our case. And that's something we have productized and we are trying to launch as a product that we're calling Instavani, but that's for a different time. So I'm just going to end early, and thank you for listening. Questions is afterwards? Okay.